Welcome to episode 39 of the Security Matters podcast, where we bring you the latest news, views and opinion from across the UK's dedicated security business sector. My name is Brian Sims and I'm the editor of Security Matters magazine. We're delighted that this podcast is sponsored by the Security Event, which runs at the NEC in Birmingham from the 27th to the 29th of April 2027. Security Matters is once again serving as the lead media partner for the exhibition. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Organised by the University of Portsmouth, a new research study examines the tactics used by call centre fraudsters in India, while also revealing the shocking scale of the industry within the country. Published in the Journal of White Collar and Corporate Crime and funded by the Home Office, the research uncovers the deceptive methods criminals use to target victims at scale, backed by more than 2 million confirmed fraud cases in the first half of 2025 alone. Millions of individuals and organisations are the victims of fraud each year, with criminals reported to have stolen close on £630 million in the first half of last year alone, according to UK Finance, underscoring just how widespread the problem has become. The research highlights how criminal operations running out of call centres in India are targeting victims in North America, Europe and Southeast Asia. Worryingly, this type of fraud seems to have become accepted by some within the Indian call centre industry as a legitimate career choice. The study has also revealed an unwritten rule among many of the operatives involved that those treating fraud as a career often deliberately avoid targeting people from their own background or nationality. Lead author Dr. Paul Gilmore from the University of Portsmouth School of Criminology and Criminal Justice commented, "What's surprising is that most of this fraud isn't particularly high-tech. There's not much in the way of accent masking or disguise. It just comes down to simple tools, remote access and manipulation." The detailed study finds that several techniques, including social engineering, a form of manipulation where fraudsters exploit human psychology rather than technical vulnerabilities in order to trick people into handing over money, personal information or access to their accounts, are being used by individuals in call centres to build false trust, create urgency and impersonate senior figures to entice victims to act. It emerges that victims are being manipulated through fear and high-pressure tactics, leaving them feeling that they had no choice but to comply. The study also reveals that fraudsters often pose as staff from trustworthy organisations, such as Microsoft Windows support representatives, using tools including pop-up warnings and phone calls to encourage those targeted to give in to their demands. In India, recruitment often happens through agencies, drawing in many individuals, including young people, some of whom genuinely believe they were joining a legitimate call centre. Lots of these operatives are young people, concluded Dr. Gilmore. It's lucrative work and, for many, represents an opportunity to attain the kind of Western lifestyle portrayed across social media. Ultimately, the study suggests that tackling the problem requires both public education around these schemes and stronger cooperation from law enforcement. Counterfeit football shirts and kits were seized across the UK during the FIFA World Cup tournament in a nationwide enforcement operation. That operation was led by the Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit at the City of London Police. The latter worked alongside the Intellectual Property Office, Border Force, trading standards and also various industry partners. Since January, officers have removed from sale over 220,000 fake shirts with an estimated genuine retail value of £18.5 million. The operation has so far resulted in multiple arrests and ongoing investigations. A series of targeted operations across the country have disrupted the sale and distribution of the counterfeit kits. 4 individuals have been arrested on suspicion of selling counterfeit shirts. A further 2 arrests were made by police forces other than the City of London Police. Enforcement activity has focused squarely on online marketplaces and also live shopping apps, as well as traditional market stalls, reflecting a shift by offenders towards the use of tech platforms. Counterfeit goods fund organised crime and deprive legitimate businesses and rights holders of revenue. Many counterfeit shirts are produced in unsafe and unregulated conditions and can contain harmful materials that fail safety standards. Buying counterfeit items can expose consumers to financial fraud and put their personal data at risk. Detective Chief Inspector Amanda Lowe of the Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit explained, "This year has witnessed a tremendous effort from everyone involved. As World Cup fever began to build, partners across the country came together to tackle this ever-growing issue. Our aim was simple, to ensure fans enjoyed the tournament and supporting their team in a shirt that's safe and legitimate." Lowe continued, "Counterfeit football shirts are not a harmless bargain. They're a key revenue stream for organised crime groups, helping to mask and fund the criminality happening behind the scenes." Further, Lowe stated, "An issue of this scale demands a coordinated response. We'll continue working with our law enforcement, government and industry partners alike to crack down on this illegal trade and the criminals who drive it." Helen Barnum, Head of Enforcement Engagement at the Intellectual Property Office, noted, "As fans show their support for their favourite teams, criminal networks continue to exploit their loyalty by targeting the market with counterfeit kits. This is anything but a victimless crime." Barnum affirmed, "These kits are produced with little or no regard for the safety of those who purchase or wear them, while their sale does nothing to support the game of football. Instead, it supports the lifestyles of the criminals involved, diverting funds away from the sport into the hands of serious and organised crime gangs." Barnum went on to comment, the trading counterfeit goods is estimated to cost thousands of jobs in the UK each year and supports other forms of serious crime, in turn harming legitimate businesses, society and the wider economy. We continue to work with our partners to help tackle this threat to our communities, thereby empowering fans to make informed choices. Kibaru Smith, director of Amazon's Counterfeit Crimes Unit, concluded, counterfeiting is a global industry-wide problem and it's why we're proud to join forces with the City of London Police on this operation. Amazon operates a zero-tolerance policy towards counterfeit products in its store. Our Counterfeit Crimes Unit will continue to work with law enforcement and brands to hold the counterfeiters accountable, while also protecting customers and the brands that criminal groups are attempting to exploit. Our first guest on episode 39 of the Security Matters podcast is Lisa Ventura MBE, founder and CEO of the AI and Cybersecurity Association, the world's first global membership body and trade association dedicated to the convergence of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Lisa is a cybersecurity awareness and culture change consultant with more than 16 years' experience of working in the cyber industry. Lisa engages with global organizations to design and then deliver awareness programs that are human-centered, trauma-informed, and neuro-inclusive. The founder of Cyber Kindness, a global campaign tackling bullying, harassment and toxic behaviour in the cybersecurity domain, Lisa was awarded an MBE by King Charles III for services to cybersecurity and to diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, subsequently becoming a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Information Security in May 2025. During our interview, Lisa tackles important topics including the convergence agenda, the risks posed by artificial intelligence and best practice when it comes to training. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa. You spent more than 16 years in the cybersecurity sector and recently founded the AI and Cybersecurity Association. What gap in the market are you trying to close with this move?
So I've spent the last 16 years or so working in the human side of cybersecurity, so running cyber awareness training programs and risk management programs. And back in 2015, I actually founded the UK Cybersecurity Association, which then became Cybersecurity Unity in around 2020. And for most of that time, the conversation about AI, it often tended to sit somewhere in the future. Oh, yeah, this might be coming, but it's certainly not something that we have to worry about now. But fast forward to today, I mean, goodness, AI is now the tools that our teams use every day in the products that vendors are selling us and also in the hands of the people who are attacking us as well. And so what I kept noticing, and particularly in the last sort of year or so, is that there are two separate communities now. There's an AI community that understands models, training data and governance, and the cybersecurity community that understands threat, risk and defense. And both seem to be describing, the same problems, but in completely different ways and languages. So I spotted that gap for the AI and Cybersecurity Association to sit at that convergence of AI and cyber. And the gap for me is actually quite a practical one, because if you're responsible for security in any size organization right now, somebody in your business, I guarantee this, will have already pasted company information into some of these LLM tools, and that could be Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, all the myriad of different tools out there. And they will be using those tools, even perhaps in a shadow AI way. So even with organizations that are trying to adopt AI and have approved tools, all sorts of information will have likely been shared. And that could be anything from sensitive information, confidential, financial, HR information. And I think that the gap is to try and raise that much needed awareness. And I also speak to a lot of organizations that say, we need to adopt AI, we need to use it. And they're not sure what practical business cases they're looking for AI to solve for them. So that's what the AI CSA exists for, to look at raising awareness and practical examples of those standards, shared language, a community to come together to look at what best practice is, look at all things like AI governance, etc. And really, that's something that is all the feedback I've had, or from my membership, is that it's just so needed. So it's early days, but I'm really excited to see where it's going to go in the future.
And historically, physical and cyber security resided in separate teams with separate budgets. Why is that separation becoming harder to justify?
So for me, it's because the people that are attacking us don't really even look at that split. And if I want to get into your network, for example, walking through your front door behind somebody carrying 2 coffees is still one of the easiest routes in. And then if I clone a badge, that's credential theft. So it just happens to be a credential made of plastic rather than a password. So for me, the separation made sense when physical security meant locks, guards and keys, and cyber meant a server in a data center or a cupboard or so on. But it stopped making sense the moment that locks started talking to the network. So what keeps that separation alive today? It's not logic, it's structure. So different budgets, different reporting lines, different professional bodies, different conferences. And in a lot of organizations, the facilities director and the head of security don't have any standard meetings at all. They're treated as 2 completely different, almost siloed entities. Then an incident will cross the line between them, which it often will do. And you find out very quickly whether those 2 people will have each other on speed dial, for example, and whether they do actually communicate with each other. And organizations that I've seen handle this well are not ones with big budgets. They're ones where somebody, sufficiently senior has taken ownership of the whole picture, and where those 2 teams run joint physical security and cybersecurity incident response exercises. And I think as well, people in physical security sometimes feel that cyber's taken, the interesting work and also the funding. And that's not particularly fair, and I don't think it really helps, because I think the convergence is happening between physical and cyber, whether these 2 factions get along or not. So I really want to see much greater collaboration between the 2 moving forward.
The access control systems, surveillance and building management platforms are now networked by default. What does that mean for the individuals who specify and install them?
So it means that they're no longer installing equipment. They're after installing endpoints on someone else's network. And that actually carries quite a duty of care that the industry is still trying to catch up with. So if you fit a camera system and leave the default credentials in place, you've added a route into that building. And if the firmware on a door controller is never updated after handover, you've added another. And these aren't particularly sophisticated attacks. They're actually the same basic hygiene failures that we've been talking about in cyber for many years. And they're turning up in a sector that's not historically had to often think that way. And in practical terms, I think for me, there's 3 things. So firstly, know what you're shipping. Have a straight answer ready on default passwords, on how firmware gets updated, and on what ports things need to be open on, whether it's on a phone's home or where it's to. And secondly, expect to be asked. So procurement teams and IT departments are starting to put these questions into tenders, and the supplier that can answer them without going quiet is often the supplier that's going to win that work. And also, be honest as well about end of life, because kit that will stop receiving security updates in a few years is a liability that you're then actually handing on to your client. And believe me, they'll remember who sold it to them. So look at framing this as an opportunity, I would say, rather than a burden, because the installer who can sit in front of a client's IT director and hold that conversation credibly, they're going to become much more valuable than the one that can't. And it's a real commercial advantage, and one that I don't think the industry has fully spotted and taken on board yet.
Artificial intelligence is being talked about as both the biggest threat and the biggest opportunity in the security domain. Where do you think the real risk resides at the moment?
So the risk that I'm quite concerned about today is actually a little bit more mundane than the one that often gets the headlines, because the headline version is that it's an autonomous AI that's writing novel malware or outthinking defenders. And what I'm actually seeing is that AI is stripping the friction out of social engineering. So the old advice about spotting a phishing email by its spelling mistakes, or look at the grammar, look at how it's set up, look at how it reads. All of that is being made almost redundant in some part, because attackers can now produce fluent, well-researched and well-targeted messages at scale in any language. And voice cloning has moved into that same problem with phone calls. And then, of course, we've got deepfake and AI videos as well. So none of that needs a breakthrough or such, because it already needs tools that already exist and they're freely available. And the second thing is what organizations are actually doing to themselves. So as I mentioned earlier, staff will often be pasting client data, contracts, code into these AI tools, especially when they're under pressure and the tool makes their day much, much easier. And businesses are buying AI-enabled products without asking what data trains them or where that data ends up. So it's kind of a shadow IT scenario all over again, but it's moving faster and it's with far more sensitive materials. So if for me, where the risk sits, it sits in governance and human behavior, which really it's where it's always sat. And the technology has changed the speed and the scale, but it's not to change the fact that it's usually a person that's making a reasonable decision under pressure with no guardrails or policy often to guide them. But I think the opportunity is real as well, because AI is really good at volume work, perhaps, for example, in a security operations center, with the triage and correlation that often burns people out. So I'd much rather see it be used somewhere like that than anywhere near a decision that it cannot explain to you afterwards.
Many organisations still train their members of staff by attempting to frighten them into action. Why does that approach fail, and what would you say works better?
So fear will often make people hide things, and hiding things is how a small incident will often become a very big one. So if you build a security awareness program around telling people how catastrophic their mistakes will be, you'll teach them that mistakes are shameful. So, for example, if somebody clicks inadvertently on a link at 4:00 on a Friday, realizes what they've done, that it could potentially be a malicious link, and they feel really sick about it, they might decide to wait and see whether anything happens. And then you've lost the next 48 to 72 hours where you would have been able to contain it if they'd felt that they'd been able to put their hand up and say, I've just clicked on this and I'm just letting you know from that security perspective. So the other problem is that fear doesn't often last, and you can frighten somebody in a training session in, say, January, and by February that effect has worn off. So what really lasts is building that all-important habit and culture. Through that, I would say make reporting the easiest thing a person can possibly do. Make it much easier than feeling that they have to cover it up. So thank people publicly when they report, including when it turns out to be absolutely nothing at all, because someone that reports a false alarm is doing precisely what you want them to do. And keep that training material short as well. Make it bite-sized, 3 to 5 minute chunks. Tie it into the actual person, the actual job that somebody does, and take out the language that only makes sense inside the security team. So make it free of jargon and the acronyms that our industry is just so fond of. And one final thing to me personally, a lot of awareness training is only designed for one kind of brain. And so I'm autistic and have ADHD, and I know that sitting through a badly designed 60-minute compliance module, that's going to cost in terms of somebody like me, in terms of attention and actually getting everything I need from that 60 minutes. So if your training only works for people who processes information the way you do, you're going to leave a big chunk of your workforce untrained. and then you'll end up blaming them when something goes wrong. So kindness for me is not the soft option here. It's operationally useful, and I actually come at it from saying kindness is a security control, because people will tell you things when they're not afraid to do so.
If a security manager listening to this podcast wanted to do one thing differently when a Monday morning arrives, what would you advise?
So find out what actually happens in your organisation when somebody reports that they've clicked on something they shouldn't, or reports a mistake of some kind. And not what the policy says happens, but what really happens. So ring your service desk and ask them how they greet somebody who says they think they've clicked on something. Then ask a member of staff who sits nowhere near the security team whether they would report a mistake, and whether they even would know how to do that, because almost everything else is going to follow on from that answer. And if people are afraid to tell you, no amount of technology or training is going to help, because you'll be finding out about incidents late, and often by the time you do, they'll have done significant damage. And if people do tell you, you've got the most valuable early warning system that you can have available to you, and you should look at protecting it very carefully. So if the answers as well that you get from this exercise make you feel a bit uncomfortable, that's actually useful information as well, because every organisation I've ever worked with has had something sitting in that gap between the policy and the practice, and the ones that improve are the ones that are willing to go back, look at it, and actually address those gaps accordingly.
Returning to the news now, and following on from Head of Marcom's Liz Lloyd becoming a trained suicide first aider and the organisation working towards completing BS 30480 compliance, the British Security Industry Association is now pioneering suicide first aid training in sector-specific courses. Published last October, BS 30480, Suicide in the Workplace, Intervention, Prevention and Support for People Affected by Suicide, is the first British standard wholly dedicated to suicide prevention, intervention and post-vention in the workplace. The document provides organisations with a practical framework to identify and manage suicide risk, guide intervention in moments of crisis, strengthen workplace policies and culture, and put forward approaches that support workplaces in the event of suicide loss. The BSIA is offering a preferentially priced course that allows security professionals to become suicide first aiders. Prior to running the first course, the Trade Association is delivering a webinar containing all of the key information, duly realising an opportunity for interested parties to ask questions. The 45-minute webinar is to be held on 3rd of September from 11 a.m. The first BS 30480 focused course is being hosted in person at the BSIA's Worcester headquarters on the 24th of September. By the end of the course, participants will be able to understand the purpose and principles of BS 30480, recognise the role that workplaces can play in suicide prevention, identify factors that may contribute towards suicide risk in workplace settings, respond appropriately when concerns are raised, understand the importance of effective support following a suicide-related incident, and consider practical steps for embedding suicide awareness within organisational policies, procedures and well-being strategies. Further, participants will gain a suicide first aider certificate. Security personnel often work in environments that expose them to a combination of risk factors associated with poor mental well-being, including lone working, irregular work patterns and hours, traumatic or distressing events, workplace violence, high levels of responsibility with limited control, and social isolation. The security industry is built around protecting people, property and places. Frontline professionals often encounter vulnerable individuals during the course of their daily duties, in turn making awareness and intervention skills particularly valuable to them. In 2020 in England, the Office for National Statistics recorded 20 deaths due to suicide among security professionals and related operations, 27 such deaths in 2021 and 32 in 2022. This is a clear indication that suicide prevention and workplace support are both essential and critical for the security industry. BS 30480 offers a practical framework to recognise suicide risk and ensure that appropriate support is available for employees affected by suicide. This is incredibly important for the security sector and will assist in shaping an industry in which the quality of mental health is actively elevated. Geopolitical tension, activist pressure, economic uncertainty and shifting public sentiment are converging in ways that are directly impacting sites, supply chains and workforces, warns Securitas, often without clear triggers or immediate warning. As such, today's organisations are increasingly seeking strategic partners that can help them to understand these evolving risks and translate insight into practical action. Analysis completed by the Risk Intelligence function at Securitas indicates that this shift has accelerated over the past year, with global developments now influencing operational risk at a pace many organisations are not set up to manage. In its role as a safety and security partner, Securitas is helping organisations to connect global developments with local operational decision-making, thereby strengthening resilience across people, assets and operations. Global risk is no longer something organisations monitor from afar, stated Mike Evans, Director of the Risk Intelligence function at Securitas. Rather, it's something they experience operationally. Events happening globally are translating much faster into local impacts. What's more, they're rarely contained in one type of risk. They show up simultaneously across sites, people and supply chains. What makes this shift challenging is not just the fact that global threats are increasing, but also how they're now translating into disruption through indirect and often overlapping pathways. In practice, this can mean geopolitical tension triggering activist campaigns against certain organisations or sectors, global supply chain instability creating operational pressure across logistics and manufacturing environments, online narratives and public discourse influencing workforce sentiment and internal risk, and hostile activity being carried out through proxies, intermediaries or low-level reconnaissance at site level. Individually, these developments may not appear connected. Taken together, however, they create sustained pressure that builds towards disruption, often without a single defining incident. This convergence reflects a broader trend identified in the 2026 Annual Intelligence Estimate produced by Securitas. As global dynamics diverge, risks are increasingly emerging at the organisational level, cutting across physical, digital, operational and reputational domains. For many businesses, this is exposing a gap between strategic awareness and practical action. While global developments are often monitored at leadership level, they're not always translated into clear site-level decisions. Security and risk can no longer exist separately from operations, added Mike Evans. They need to bridge the gap between global insight and frontline decisions, in turn helping organisations to build resilience and make informed operational choices. The organisations adapting most effectively are those moving away from siloed security models towards integrated and intelligence-led approaches delivered through trusted partnerships. This means combining on-site security guarding with risk intelligence and continuous monitoring, global threat insight with local context and operational awareness, and strategic analysis with frontline decision-making. When officers and teams are briefed with relevant context, they're better able to identify weak signals of emerging risk, recognise when external pressure may translate into operational impact, and intervene early on before issues escalate into disruption. Without that connection, even well-resourced security models remain inherently reactive. Our second guest on this edition of the podcast is Sam Griffiths, Technical Director and Systems Integration Specialist at Ajax Systems. Having served as Business Development Manager for the RISCO Group, Sam then moved to the CSL Group and served in the same role at that company from 2010 until 2013. He then became an area manager at Pyronix before accepting the role of Business Development Manager at Dahua UK and Ireland. Sam became Technical Director at Ajax Systems in May 2019, increasing his remit to encompass systems integration in December last year. On this occasion, Sam focuses on the design and deployment of security systems, the role of technology, and the importance of intelligent video in today's security regimes.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast, Sam. The security industry is undergoing major change, with customers increasingly looking towards integrated solutions rather than separate systems. What key trends are shaping the future roadmap, and how should installers and integrators adapt to these changes?
Yeah, for sure. The end user is demanding more from I guess they always have, but what we're delivering at Ajax Systems is that complete ecosystem. So no longer are people interested in a device or a camera. They're looking at how that is really delivering some data-rich information across the intrusion, video, fire safety, automation market. So an example of that is if a device triggers, perhaps a video camera can pick that up and give some kind of visual verification of what's going on. So it's that complete solution that the end user is looking for, that data rich. And of course, with the type of connectivity that we are enjoying now on our smart devices, on many systems that we're using, that we can deliver that smart information very quickly to the smart devices via the cloud. Being one ecosystem, which Ajax offers, then we do that in a very slick way. So we're not kind of bolting different technologies and OEMs from different companies. Everything that we manufacture sits on our ecosystem, which sits on our servers. So that strategy where we're keeping the data, the information safe and secure, we can deliver it in a very quick way, which is what the end user is really requiring now.
From your experience of working with security professionals, what are the biggest challenges installers and system integrators face at present when it comes to designing and then deploying security systems for different types of facilities?
Yeah, so we've always had the challenge in our market that we might be talking about a residential type solution, a commercial type solution, high security applications. I guess one of the main things right now when I speak to my colleagues, friends, etc., who own integration companies, installation companies, that they're looking for the skill to do that. They're looking for the engineer to do that. It's very difficult to get the kind of skill set that they're looking for. So to bring it all within one ecosystem, one training session that you like, where you have the CCTV, intruder, fire, and automation all built into one, then when you're delivering that solution, then it's very end to end, and you're using the same technology. So you're not having to relearn lots of different manufacturers and then how they connect in together. So whether you're deploying that in a residential solution or a commercial. Now, in my mind, there's actually not that much difference between a commercial solution as a residential solution. They're both demanding, maybe in a slightly different way. However, an end user, whether that be a concierge or a security guarding company, then they're looking for that same information. So with the Ajax solution, we are able to deploy that data-rich information, so verifying the alarm through visual verification, as I mentioned before there, and doing something else with it. So is it some switching on some lights, opening a gate, giving that experience a lot easier across that ecosystem, and not making it so complex is really what I'm saying. So the skill of that engineer, they just need to understand one ecosystem very well, and then they can deploy that without the additional challenges of having to know a lot of different manufacturers to try and get that together. So difficult to get skills in the first place. So what we're trying to do is kind of make the smart parts happen in the cloud and tie all those things together, so the engineering technicians, salespeople can deploy and quote very easily as the correct solution for that end user. So taking the complexity out, putting the information and the connectivity within the cloud, a lot of the smart stuff can be done up there. And whether you're deploying into a commercial sector or a residential sector, high security can be deployed in each, delivering that data-rich information and reducing the complexity in that way.
How do you see the role of technology evolving in the security domain across the next few years, and what capabilities will become essentials for security providers, do you feel?
For me, it's getting more and more exciting. I've spent 40 years in this industry and you know, been in various different parts of it. But we're now kind of, in my mind, in my view, sort of catching up with the rest of technology that's out there. That we've got AI-powered video analytics for more accurate responses, reducing the amount of false alarms that are going on out there, or increasing the actual things that we want to see, that we are interested in seeing. So reducing the amount of labor time that is being used by looking at something which is irrelevant to what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for a human in an environment, then I can remove all the other searches across that video analytics through the AI. and then connecting that through greater integration into the intrusion products, video surveillance, fire, and automation. So I think that we're now moving into that stage. We've perhaps been slowed down a little bit in the past with not being in touch with the latest technologies and keeping up to speed with that. But I think that Ajax, for sure, we are capturing that. We're delivering that cloud type technology into the best possible solutions, and then delivering that data rich information into the end user, into the alarm receiving centres, onto the emergency services. You know, not only are we looking to detect something and alert the emergency services, but also we can detect something and actually reduce the amount of calls to those emergency services. So we're actually reducing the false alarms. So with our fire systems, the EN54 type solution, as an example, we have what's called a video scenario built into that. So if you have one of our motion cams or an Ajax camera in there, if a smoke detector would activate, as an example, then you can get a snapshot of that room, that environment, or streaming video of what's going on. That's delivered to a smart device. It could be delivered to concierge, security office, goes back to the alarm receiving center, and people are getting real-time images of what's going on. So at that point, if it's a false alarm, then reducing the amount of false alarms onto the emergency services. If it's a real event, then for sure, the people that are actually going to do something about it have got the information to do it. So they can see that there is a fire event and it's actually happening, as opposed to, let's say someone's accidentally pushed a pool point in a school. Then they can see that happening. So data-rich information is really what the end user's looking for, how the technology is now evolving, giving that professional market the technology that they probably wanted it for years, but have been slowed down with the fact that investment from manufacturers hasn't really happened.
Ajax Systems recently introduced its wireless Grade 3 intrusion protection system. Precisely why is achieving Grade 3 for wireless so important for the professional security market, and what opportunities does it create for installers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Grade 3 market, when did it sort of come in? 2004, 2005. So we've been knocking around the Grade 3 market for 20 plus years now. When it was first launched 20 years ago, manufacturers said, well, Grade 3 can't be wireless. So Ajax for sure loves the challenge, and had a look at the standards and what was required to Grade 3 BSE N50131 at this high level of specification, and went, okay, well, why can't this be done? So they developed the hubs, the control panels, detectors, keypads, sirens, the whole solution, if you like, in through a Grade 3 wireless type solution. So Grade 3, it tends to be, well, it's high risk. So they tend to be more trickier sites to deploy that type of technology, and there's more technology within Grade 3. We've had, what do we think about with Grade 3 technology? It's generally masking. Let's start there. So we've had masking technology with our external devices. So that's a very hostile market, external devices fitted outside. And we've had anti-masking technology on that for 7 years. And so we've learned, okay, what is the most stable way of delivering Grade 3 anti-masking technology to wireless devices? And we've taken that technology and we've put it inside. So actually, the environment is far easier. It's a lot less hostile. And so we have that stability side of things. So the technology that we can deliver is grade 3 and possible at grade 3, because that's how we designed our system. We actually designed our system at that high level many years ago. So grade 2 market is probably the core market, and that's what we focused on. We then went, okay, can we do grade 3? Yeah, for sure. And we've done grade 3 hardwired for a number of years now. And now let's have a look at our technology and see what we can do with the grade 3 wireless. And what are the restrictions? Why can't we do it? Why have we been told in the market that it can't be done? Is that a kind of myth? Is it a technology issue? Or is it, in fact, the way that the standards work, it can't be done? And what we found out is that actually you can deploy grade 3 wireless technology into the market. It's about timings, as the masking, as I've mentioned. We've had masking for years in a wireless technology, masking on the door contacts, and actually we can do it in actually a more digital way. So, example, in an analog hardwired door contact grade 3, if you want to test that, if you want to calibrate it, if you like, calibrate the magnets, it's actually quite a task to analog that test with your meter, etc., and is difficult to do, let's say. However, we developed the technology that you can actually do all of that calibration remotely via the app. So the smart technology that we've been thinking about wanting for decades is now available as a grade 3 intrusion solution, as a wireless grade 3 intrusion solution for Ajax. So perhaps what's the other thing in there? And it's jamming. So anything that's wireless, then there is a perception that jamming can be used, so a device can be used to jam that wireless signal. So we looked at the anti-jamming algorithms, which we already have in the grade 2, and said, right, okay, how much more do we need for grade 3? So we looked into that and then had a look at that continuous monitoring, how we deliver moving across different frequencies multiple times. And then within that architecture, within the timings that are prescribed within the grade 3 solution, we found out exactly that we could do that. So why would we hold back the technology? Why would we hold back our industry from having a grade 3 solution? Because back in 2005, someone said we couldn't do it. Yeah, we've moved on. How much technology has moved on in the last 20 years with anything? It's huge. So why are we not moving on in our industry, in the security and fire industry? Well, Ajax are. That's what we're delivering.
How does Ajax Systems approach the subject of video surveillance, and what role is intelligent video playing in modern security regimes?
Okay, so Ajax, 3-4 years ago, we were carrying on being requested for more security. So do we have cameras? Can we have Ajax cameras? We love Ajax technology. We want to make that part of the Ajax ecosystem. So we looked into it and said, okay, we think we can do that. So important to say, none of our products are OEM'd. Everything is manufactured by Ajax. So all manufactured in our plants, etc., etc. So that's sort of required for the NDAA type technology. So we wanted to launch that into the market. We also wanted to build onto that ecosystem. So how can we deliver that visual side of things? And for me, if I'm getting some information and I get that on my smart device and I can see what's going on, then I'm going to make the best possible decision. Now, whether that's me as the end user, we've spoken about residential, we've spoken about commercial, but me having that data-rich information that my unit, my business unit, has got an activation on the security system. I get a visual verification of what's going on. I can then check on those cameras that if there was an incident, actually if there was somebody there, that in fact, after the activation, sirens, strobes, everything's happening through the ecosystem, lights are going on, etc. They've disappeared, hopefully. But me as the key holder, I can then go back into that camera and I can view what's going on, making sure they have gone. So when I'm going back there, and potentially I'm going to get there before the emergency services, I know what I'm walking into. So to have that data-rich information, to visually verify what's going on, but also to give me that comfort that as things have gone on, that somebody's scarpered, and I'm not going to walk into a situation which is, it's not a good situation for me to walk into. We developed our own technologies. So as I say, not an OEM product, it is our own solution. And when we were doing the research into the market, there was a lot of the username password type feedback, which was, we don't feel, this is from end users, and from installers, saying that, we don't feel that that's secure enough, because it requires someone to remember to put the correct username and password in it, change it, or it's generally an engineer that does that. So it means that the person that's setting up has full control of the CCTV system. So whether it's residential or commercial, the end user was saying, actually, we don't want the manufacturer or installer integration company having control of the NVR or the camera and having the username password for it. So we developed Jet Sparrow technology. It's our own protocol, which does enable us to allow the end user, the alarm receiving center, to really get the information very quickly, but also protects the information that it's being viewed. So it's only if the end user allows another person to use it, to view it, that they can in fact see those images in the first place. However, when you do have access to those images, then for sure you want to see them fast. And that's what we deliver with the Jet Sparrow technology. So whether it's on the archive or whether it's live streaming, the information is going to be literally at fingertips, very easy to view on a slider. You then put the AI eyepiece in, and at that point you start filtering the information again very quickly. So for sure, it needed to be part of the portfolio. It needed to be part of the Ajax solution, not an OEM product, NDAA compliant, hence the Jet Sparrow technology, protecting the end users. Really, most private information is visual information of what's happening on their site. But when the end user needs it, then they can check, make sure that the coast is clear for them to go back into there, perhaps if they've beaten the emergency services to site.
As a business, Ajax Systems brings intrusion protection, video surveillance, fire safety and automation together in one ecosystem, as you've mentioned. How does this unified approach change the way in which practicing professionals design and manage security systems?
I think we sort of briefly touched on it before, is that it will hopefully make that situation easier to deliver, more straightforward. You're using the same types of technology. We offer training through our academy. We have some great BDMs. We have some great technical managers that can come out and do the training, etc. So it's nice and easy for an integrator installer to move away from an existing brand that they might be using, or to move into a technology that they may not have been involved in before. So we're seeing a lot of perhaps automation market move into the video market, intrusion market, and kind of vice versa, really, that we're allowing an easy crossover with those technologies, allowing the installer to go and visit a new channel, which they may have passed on before, but now they can grasp it and bring it into that ecosystem. So easier to quote, easier to install, and we're going to back up everything that we're putting into the market with plenty of training, whether that's on site or off site, with the academy. All the devices, services, and software all operates on that single platform, and that sort of unified application allows everybody to get the best possible use of the technology. So, after you've gone out and done the hard work, you've gone out and sold it, you've gone out and installed it, then you want the best possible SLA for your end user, so you get more business, or so you can serve them up with a maintenance monitoring type contract at the end of the install and for ongoing years. There's, that's where a lot of money is made. So to be able to do that process and be able to get in each one of those devices through one platform, allowing you to do a really easy maintenance remotely. So, I believe our industry is moving forward. We're not sending engineers to do maintenances all the time unless it's necessary to do so. So if we can do that remotely and we can maintain the camera, we can maintain the fire system, we can maintain the intrusion system, we can check the automation type devices. And if there's any change in there that we need to deliver, then it's easy for us to see that information. So with that side of things, that it is important, it's highly important that the back end really does suit what's gone on as part of that installation. So you can carry on making money from it, but also when you need to do something within the system, that it's smart and easy to do so. So I guess really simply that, if you need to change the sensitivity of a shock sensor, nice and easy, that you don't need to send an engineer out. You can basically jump onto the app. You can go into the hub, then go into the device, and you can change that sensitivity. So no need for an engineer to go, or maybe when it is more convenient for that engineer to attend, so they're within that area. So really just that back end is very important for Ajax. We want you to obviously install the system, but also maintain that system easily afterwards. And through what we call the Desktop Pro platform, very powerful, setting up Ajax services, so that's SIMs, dual path signaling, cloud storage, other great features, all done within that Desktop Pro. The Pro is part of the ecosystem, allowing you to add and remove systems on the fly on your smart device. And of course, when we're connected to that cloud, then it's really important that the privacy and the cyber security is right up there. It needs to be number one on that list, really. Lots of scares recently, a lot of things happening recently, where we've had the attacks, etc. So there is nothing more serious to Ajax as an app control cloud system that we have that cyber security nailed as well. So all within our ecosystem, because they're all our devices, there's no OEM. So it allows us to then build that reliability right into the core, right into our servers, delivering resilience and delivering stability, both to the end user and to the installer. Bringing that into the residential market and to the commercial market, both are equally as important. Whether it's a residential property with 700 devices, a business unit with 12 devices, but they're grade 3, or an EN54 commercial fire system, which has 200 devices on it.
That brings us to the end of this edition of the Security Matters podcast. Many thanks indeed to our special guests on this episode, namely Lisa Ventura from the AI and Cybersecurity Association and Sam Griffiths of Ajax Systems. Many thanks also to our podcast sponsor, The Security Event. The Security Event runs from the 27th to the 29th of April 2027 at the NEC in Birmingham. To register for the show, visit www.thesecurityevent.co.uk. Don't forget to visit our website at www.securitymattersmagazine.com, where you can access all of our podcasts and also read the latest news and opinion from the security business sector. You can view our dedicated features content and also sign up to receive our very popular weekly e-news bulletin. Please do contact us if there are any key themes or issues you would like us to explore on upcoming editions of the podcast. You can do so on X, formerly Twitter of course, by using the hashtag SecurityPod. On that note, make sure you follow us on X at WBMSecMatters and access our LinkedIn page at Security Matters. Please do like and share the podcast content and spread the word among your industry colleagues. You can listen to the Security Matters podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube or Podbean. To download the Security Matters podcast, all you need to do is enter the term Security Matters into your chosen platform search box. We'll see you next time.